When you get ready to start embroidering, hooping your fabric or your project is the most important part. After this is done with the correct stabilizer, the machine kind of does the rest. So this is your job. Once you master the hooping, alignment, really, that's the hard part. And then you get to sit back and enjoy watching the embroidery machine do the rest. Now we do have a video on threads and stabilizer that we're going to link to right up here in this little eye that you can really go in and learn more about stabilizer and different things about the machine. That's just a nice good base understanding about those items. Now when I work with cotton fabric, I know a lot of you will be doing that, you will find that working with a Tearaway Stabilizer is the best. Notice there's 2 layers of stabilizer here that I'll be hooping up. I say that you gotta use 2 layers. If you go with just one, it's not gonna turn out as good. Now one thing about cotton fabric, we all know that like the bias is gonna stretch if you pull on it. Even when you start to put all those stitches in here, it's gonna wanna pull in. So yes, you can have stabilizer 2 layers, 3 layers, even up to 4 if you've got a really heavy design. But one thing you might wanna look into, and this is kind of a more advanced technique, but this is an iron-on woven interfacing. And it's very lightweight. See how gentle it is? If you iron this onto the back of a piece of cotton fabric before you embroider on it, still use the 2 layers of Tearaway Stabilizer, I have noticed my cotton fabrics don't have the little wrinkles around the design that we're trying to avoid. So there are some different things that can prep your fabric for the best results. Now I do have just one of my most common stabilizers that's a Cutaway Stabilizer. If you're doing any t-shirts or stretch fabrics, you need Cutaway Stabilizer, not Tearaway. And that's going to give that fabric, the embroidery, the foundation it needs. So Cutaway for stretchy, Tearaway for woven fabrics, and if you go that one step further with the woven, you're going to love the results. The other thing that's my best friend is some temporary spray adhesive. 505 is one that's very easy to get a hold of, and also it doesn't stink. So as you spray it, if you're indoors or it's wintertime, you got everything closed up in your home, it's not going to be like, oh my gosh, this is so hard on my nose. So keep this in mind. Usually I like to recommend like a little spraying area or hooping area. Just one thing that will help is if you stand up when you hoop. If you try to do this sitting down, it's just not fun at all. So before I start to hoop, I am going to spray my layers together. So since I have 2 layers of Tearaway, I am going to, and shake up the can, really good, spray the stabilizers together. It's like Post-it note in a can. So it really is just going to help hold everything, but you're going to really see the benefit in a second here. Notice I'm spraying the stabilizer, and I know it's curling a little bit here. Give it that little spray. Then when I lay my fabric down on it, once it sticks, remember how I pulled along the bias of the fabric? Look, now when I pull on the bias, you don't see that fabric stretching, and that's because it has been lightly adhered to stabilizer that doesn't stretch. Now, that's a key. If you find stabilizer that has a little give to it, it's not stabilizer. Make sure you truly find something that is stabilizer. So head over to your local Pfaff store. The sewing machine stores stock the right stabilizers and can help you pick out the right one for your project. Okay, next, on your Pfaff hoop, you need the bracket for the outside hoop over here on the left side. Okay, that's going to go down first. You'll also notice that the inner hoop has the numbers of the size. So 260 by 200 is showing right here. I want that to be so I can read it. In other words, it's not upside down. These little marks are actually the center of where the embroidery is going to stitch. Just to give you a reference point. Notice these marks right here. See how they're lower? They're not centered. And that's because there's a little gap or margin at the top here. Everything embroiders closer to the lowest edge than centered in here. So just keep that in mind. So what I usually do is if I have a line drawn on my fabric for getting it lined up, I'm going to put my marks on that line, and then I'm going to pick up everything at once. Stabilizer, fabric, and I'm going to move it over here. But before we start playing around, I want you to open up this little lever, that's the quick release, and loosen up your screw. Usually your new hoops are really tight, so loosen those up. If you're trying to push these together and they don't want to go, this needs to be loosened. Don't force it. You'll regret it later. Okay, so here we go. We're just going to slide this over. I tend to put the top part of the hoop in first and then work down towards this lower corner. Now if it goes in, which it is because it's really loose, and then what we're going to do is close that little bracket. Okay, once that's closed, then we're going to take it and tighten up the screw as much as possible. Your fingers are going to get really strong at this point. Okay, nice and tight. So what are you noticing? I'm not actually stretching the fabric and stabilizer. I am making that the two hoops are tight and squeezing and holding the fabric and stabilizer together. All right, so a little bit more. Now, the last little bit that I'm going to show you is, right now, if I move the hoop on the table, can you hear it? That hoop is kind of scraping along. So if we take your thumbs on the inner side of the hoop, push just a little past flush. This is my little trick here. Just a little bit. We're making the stabilizer come all the way down and through. And it's okay if you get a little pinch of stabilizer and fabric here. That's no problem. All right, now listen. Ah, quiet. It also just made everything just a little bit tighter, made sure everything is flat. Those two hoops are flat against each other. That's ideal. All right, so when you go to put the hoop on, you can just slide it. Notice that I didn't tip it. I'm not doing this. All I have to do is slide underneath it and it goes right in. Sometimes I'll even just set it on the bed of the machine just until I get everything ready or going. But right now, I can go ahead and you are looking to take the little lever here, slide it into his mouth, and I want you to use your strength. I want you to push hard on the front of the hoop until you hear that click. When you go to release the hoop, push down on the little button or lever here and pull the hoop to you. Do not be afraid to use the force. I want you to make sure you always are getting that hoop fully attached. And don't push down on this while you're pushing it on. Only use this for removing it. And then again, you can just slide it out. Again, no tipping. You don't have to do any tipping on that. If for any reason the foot feels low, you can always lift the foot up on the front of the machine. So technically, we are all ready. We have fabric hooped. We're going to do some testing of some designs. We're going to do some alphabets. We're going to show you how to combine designs and all the fabulous features that are on this Pfaff Creative 3.0 sewing and embroidery machine.